Thank you. Okay, I'm Brian Geyser. I am the head of clinical innovation at Inspiren. I'm a nurse practitioner. I was a former chief clinical officer and head of enterprise intelligence at Maplewood Senior Living, and I'm a venture partner at 1843 Capital, Tracy Chadwell's venture capital firm, and we invest in AgeTech. So, looking forward to her panel later. So today what we're going to do is we have 30 minutes, so we're going to bang through this quickly. But we're going to try to establish some new rules for AI in aging services and age tech. We're going to deliver some clear takeaways for you guys, and then we're going to try to expose what's real, what's hype, and what's hard, what's not. And we're going to try to just like rip through all the BS and get right to the AI stuff that we all want to hear about. So I'm going to turn it over to my esteemed panelists here. They can all introduce themselves and then we'll get going.
Hello. Hi, my name is Yvonne Yancy. I am the founder and CEO of YSquare Advisors. It's an HR boutique consulting group. I've got 30 years of HR experience. My most recent role was Chief People Officer at Kaplan, North America. My career started at GE when it was GE 100 years ago. I worked across lots of different industries, advising leaders and supporting large client groups on things like AI and technology implementations and how to move organizations forward.
Hello, everybody. I'm Jeff Hayward. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for TriNet. We're a professional employer organization, and our mission is to really power the success and the growth of small businesses. And we do that in many ways. One of the best ways is we help them attract and retain talent by providing the best benefits, payroll, and HR services.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jonathan Fitch, the founder and CEO of GlucoSense. We are a Georgia Tech research-based startup. We have a A1C alternative that's a digital biomarker. We're able to identify subsets of insulin-dependent diabetics who are at a very high risk of ending up in the emergency room for acute care and helping keep them out of the facilities. My background out of Georgia Tech in industrial engineering and computer science, and I've also lived with type 1 diabetes for 15 years.
Hi, my name's Cheung. I'm not up on the list, but I'm filling in for Joe. I'm a solutions architect for Guardian Pharmacy. We're very focused on using our data to the best of its capabilities. I lead our BI and AI projects. And I think I was told we're allowed to say we're now over 50 pharmacies and over half the country.
Okay, thanks. And thanks, Eric, for filling in for Joe. Joe's wife and kid is sick, so he had to stay home today. All right, so I'm gonna start off with a quick audience poll. I want to ask the question to the audience. By 2028, which area will be most transformed by AI in your mind? There's the three areas we're talking about today. So you can only pick one by raise of hands. Which area will be most transformed by AI? Care delivery, staffing, or education and training? So if you think care delivery, raise your hand. Wow, not a lot. All right, staffing. That was a big one. Education and training. Okay, so I think staffing and education and training were the winners there. So let's start off with our first question. I'm going to dive right into ROI because I want to understand from these guys what they're seeing in terms of AI ROI in the real world. So Jeff, let's ask you, is AI delivering real ROI for aging services and aging companies or companies that focus on aging? And if so, can you give some examples?
Sure. So it's a little bit of a tricky subject. And I think we're kind of developing our understanding of ROI in this space. If you look at some specific examples, one of the most recent studies that was done was MIT NANDA study. And what they found is 95% of companies that are deploying AI are not achieving an ROI from that effort. Now you have to kind of drill into that to kind of understand it better. So there are examples like Banner Health. Banner Health actually is using AI in their scheduling department. They previously had 400 agents providing scheduling. They reduced that down to 350 through the use of AI. That's about a 35% improvement in productivity for them. So there is a real examples of ROI. Where it gets tricky is you start to get into areas like Ballad Health. What Ballad Health did is they deployed ambient AI in their offices, so it could actually do all the notes and all the summarization for the physicians. What that does is it saves about 7 to 15 minutes in each one of the appointments. What happens when you save 7 to 15 minutes? You probably get an extra coffee, or maybe you pause in the hallway to talk to a colleague. So that contributes to productivity leakage. So it's a little bit tricky to actually see how ROI will go all the way down to the bottom line. And that's why we're not really seeing the impact that is the potential of what this technology can provide. The other aspect in the question is, what are some of the barriers to ROI? And I kind of think about it in 3 dimensions: people, platform, and process. And if you're going to be successful in achieving ROI in AI, you have to consider each one of those. People, that's your number one asset, and that's your number one challenge. People, as you saw, people raise their hands. They're excited, but they're also fearful. So you have to get them over that hurdle, and you have to be able to drive adoption. The next thing is platform. We all talk about the AI, but the AI is only valuable if you have a platform with data, and that data has to be able to provide context to the AI for you to get the value out of it. A lot of companies trip because they don't prepare their data properly. And the last thing is process. You see a lot of companies deploying point solutions in AI, doing a lot of pilots that look really cool, but they're not actually driving value to the bottom line because they're not looking at the process end to end. AI has to become part of how you do business, and it has to become integrated into your business process to get the value.
Okay. Anybody else on the panel want to hit that ROI question?
Sure. Yeah. Like you said, it's very difficult to judge ROI by itself, especially if you're looking at predictive analytics or preventative measures, right? So Guardian has been focused particularly on falls management. We've built a machine learning program that really considers all of the meds that you've been on and can help physicians and our pharmacists determine whether there's an issue or potentially a high fall risk, right? In one of our pilot studies, we've seen numbers decrease by over 80%, right? It's insane. And so we were talking about kind of where we see the ROI. If we view it as a fall is 35,000 on the whole healthcare system, right? What does 80% mean, right? If for our population, we have about 200,000 residents, right? 80% is quite a lot. And then I am just really impressed. No one said faxes. It seems crazy. Faxes are a huge part of healthcare that should not be a part of healthcare anymore.
Anywhere.
And that's where also AI can just deliver a huge amount of efficiency gains, right? Being able to read through a PDF or an image of a fax and just be able to help deliver that information over to the triage team to make sure that that gets to where it needs to go.
Yeah, in my previous role at Maplewood Senior Living, so we had a home office and we had a lot of accountants who worked for us, and we processed about 2,000 or 3,000 invoices per month, and all of that was done by our accounting team. And that was all manual. So they literally would receive an invoice in the email. They would check the invoice. They would code it into our finance system. And they were spending an inordinate amount of time doing this repetitive rote work. And so we sourced an AI solution for this. And what the AI solution would do was automatically receive the invoice, read the invoice like you were talking about, and then it would automatically code it into our financial system. And when we presented this to our accountants, you could just see them looking at the demo thinking, oh my God, I'm not going to have a job, in a few weeks. And I can understand their fear, but what we really were looking to do is not reduce our accounting workforce. It was to free them up to do much more higher order tasks that they went to school for. They didn't go to school to read an invoice and input it into a system. That's what AI is really good at doing. So when they realized that what we were going to do is give them the freedom to do other more important things that they really enjoyed doing, their fear went away. And we did reduce the amount of time substantially for processing invoices. So that's just one example. Any other examples you want to?
Yeah, I can add on to both what Brian and Jeff were saying. We've seen that, like, as you're implementing with an insurer or a healthcare system, I mean, I'll speak from example. We screwed up a pilot early on because AI was very flashy, and it was really difficult to move the needle with the clinical team because there was no financial buy-in. Once we got the financial buy-in and we were speaking the language of ROI, and these are the measures that we actually are moving. So like for us focused in insulin dependent diabetes, a quarter of that 400 billion spent annually on diabetes is on acute episodes. So the ROI measure that we have to move is, can we reduce the likelihood somebody's going to end up in the emergency room and save that money there? That's super important for the insurer, and that's like pretty much the only thing they care about. We don't even need to talk about AI as part of the product. It's something we use to create the solution. And if you can't point to the P&L item that you're solving for the system, the insurer, you're just going to be lost, especially now as everybody's really excited about AI and all AI can do. I mean, what Jeff was saying about getting lost in the workflow or the system, that's exactly what's going to happen. And that exciting pilot is just going to die.
Well, I think that when you look at AI in the workplace, the first thing people talk about is replacement of work, of people, right? Your job is changing. And technology has been in the workplace for a long time. There are a lot of things that have changed your job over time. Emails, I had a pager once 100 years ago. And so the reality is we all have to live through those changes. The question is the AI solution amplifying the work that's core to your organization? So like in the 90s, we had payroll departments. Now we have TriNet. Right? We decided that that was not our core delivery. And so when you look at your organization across the board, the question is for that customer service group or that finance group or that HR group or whatever it happens to be, what's really their core delivery in the legal department? Is it drafting contracts? Probably not. You have an AI tool for that, but it really is about negotiating the contract. There's not an AI tool for that. And so I think that's the question in terms of the balancing out the impact of AI. How do you make sure that as you turn it on, you're engaging in your workplace, in your company to ensure that the core value of what that function delivers is actually happening, and using the AI tool to amplify and get rid of that day-to-day administrative support, et cetera, that you don't really want to be in the business of. You didn't go to school for the invoicing, right? You went to school for the analysis part. So how do you make sure that the AI tool does that?
Yeah, and I want to say, so Inspiren, the company that I work for, we do ambient AI systems for healthcare settings. And what I want to say to everyone in the room, if you're an entrepreneur or a technology service provider, what you have to be able to do, what Jonathan was talking about, is you have to be able to prove your ROI in any of these AI systems. So one of the things that we do when we meet with customers is we go through all of the different AI levers that we're going to hit, or the ROI levers that we're going to hit, and how we're going to hit that. And then we ascribe finances to that and savings and all of that. So in senior living, it's all about occupancy. It's about length of stay, right? It's about reducing ER visits and hospitalizations. So how is our system helping them to do that? And what are the dollar amounts associated with all of that stuff? So we do that in the sales process. We sit down, and as we're selling our product, we're talking about what the ROI levers are and how we're going to impact them. And then we hold ourselves accountable to them. So every month when we meet with the executives from the companies that we're serving, we're holding ourselves accountable to those ROI metrics. And it's a collaboration. We need the data from our customers to be able to prove that. And we're happy to do it and proud to do it. And guess what? If we're not proving ourselves that we're delivering value, we're out. We're done. And our company's done. So you've got to be able to do that. So always be thinking about that. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're a tech startup, how are you going to prove the ROI to your customers? Okay. All right, we're going to move. So what's the new rule for ROI in AI?
I'll give it a shot.
Yeah.
So I think the new rule is to think differently about it. And I think you just did a great job of explaining all the different kinds of metrics you have to include. So for me, the new rule is ROI kind of equals the productivity enhancements times the cost of labor. And that's usually where we stop. Right? But then to your point, then you have to go to the next level. You have to look at what is the quality of the interaction that you've improved times the business impact, which really gives the value. But don't forget, you also have to add the impact of employee satisfaction and employee retention, because removing all that manual work, you're going to get a big lift there.
Anyone else want to take a shot at a new rule for ROI? Okay.
I would just say, make sure you look at solving the problem and the ROI first and don't get lost in the tech and the AI. The AI is just a way that you're going to do it. And the client doesn't even really need to hear about that unless it helps close the deal of they did something with AI. But other than that, it's for you to figure out, not to sell with.
Eric?
I mean, I think I'm going to come at this in a very different way, but you know, these guys are business owners, and I'm just a developer for our pharmacy. So, from our perspective, pharmacy is pretty funny of an industry, right? Medication is very powerful. It can have really great effects, improve people's quality of life a ton. Sometimes people have to be on certain meds for the rest of their life, right? Sometimes meds are overprescribed. Sometimes meds are need to be deprescribed, right? So when we talk about ROI, and so with our falls management program, a lot of what we do is deprescribe meds, right? We actively tell people stop buying our stuff, right? Effectively, but the outcomes, the patient outcomes, is what we're looking at, right? Because there is another person on the other side of that, right? They're not just a number. I tear up, but we have one woman who we've worked with. She went from just being non-responsive, walking around, kind of shuffling around, being very distraught, to just being very bright, excited. She was picking flowers, gardening, telling people how they should be gardening. And that was just the complete reversal, 180 reversal that we saw with the work that we're doing. And so when the customer saw that, they were instantly on board. They said, okay, you know what? We need to do this program in every single location that I oversee, right? And so it's tough to judge, that financial dollar, but I think the patient outcomes is also really important to remember.
So Eric's new rule is stop taking all of your medication today. All right. So next question, we're going to move into care. And what I want to ask each of you is, if you were advising a decision maker today, what would you tell them about AI and an AI enablement in their company? What would you tell them to stop doing?
Stop treating AI like it's an IT project or a new application. When we first rolled out AI, we had a similar experience on adoption. We didn't have very good adoption. We tried to deploy it like an app, and people didn't know what to do with it. They asked it a question, got an answer, and thought, well, this isn't too great. What we did the next time around is we rethought how we're going to introduce it to the company, and we actually introduced it as a new employee. We said, we have this savant that we just hired, and they have limitless knowledge. You can interact with them on almost any topic. And then we rolled it out from that kind of perspective, and we saw a dramatic increase in adoption and the way that people started interacting with the technology.
I would say stop thinking that AI replaces your people. You still need people. Yeah. It might do different things, but you need the people. AI will not eliminate the customer service department. It might eliminate 5 jobs in it or half of it, but you still need other people. And so it's not a thing you put the switch on and then hope it works out. You still need guardrails and process and capacity.
To build on both of these points, so we're in all the WellStars across the state of Georgia. We have over 4,000 people on the platform. We have 47% weekly active users from all-time signups. So people really engage with our product. The initial hurdle we had is providers were like, it's never going to interpret the charts better than I can. It's not going to be able to provide better recommendations. Well, the reality is it absolutely can. And it does that autonomously without you involved every single day. We thought we were going to lose the pilot early on because the providers believed that it wouldn't move the needle with patients. What ended up happening is patients showed back up 3 months later, and they were talking in the language of GlucoSense. This is what my glucose score was. This is what it was telling me. This is how it's helped me. And it reignited the pilot. The providers came back to us and were like, this is really helping. So when you're implementing AI systems, how is this, looking at it from the lens of how's this going to change my job? How's this going to allow me to be more collaborative and empathetic with the patient and move the needle to actually see an improvement in outcomes? You're becoming a 10x doctor by having these tools work with the patients outside of the system. It's a new way to deliver care, and it's really a new time. So really being there to embrace that's important.
I'm going to establish a new rule right now for AI in care delivery, which is stop thinking about AI as taking away your employees and start thinking about AI as an employee, right? So put the AI agents on your org chart, give them to the people who need them, like our accountants. The way we were thinking about it is our accountants now had another employee, which was the AI agent that was processing the invoices. So they had someone that they had to oversee, they have to supervise, they have to do performance management on. How is the AI doing? What's the quality check? So that's the way we were thinking about it. And what we will all see in the near future for all of us is that there will be AI agents on your org charts that people are supervising. And then an AI becomes sort of this superpower for them, right?
Right.
So it's the Iron Man suit for all of us. All right. So I'm going to move into staffing. So Yvonne, what is a real world staffing pain point that AI is actually solving today?
An obvious one is training and development, and the capacity to take the current population you have and upskill them quickly. And so, if you have thinking about in a healthcare setting, making sure that you can diagnose properly. When you went to school, the pictures in the textbook were of one population. What does eczema look like across multiple melanated skin tones, for example? People haven't seen that before. AI tools allow you to have on-demand training in a way that's thoughtful and inclusive of who you're actually serving, to make sure that the people that you have, that you spend a lot of time and money hiring, are able to really deliver at a higher level. And so in terms of patient outcome, in terms of delivery outcome, it's really important. Another way that AI is really delivering is around selection and recruitment, and being able to identify top performers and people who need more developmental support and giving them the interventions they need to get to that higher level. Again, if you hire anyone, you spent money doing it, you liked them once and they liked you. You want to make sure you can retain them, right? And so giving them the tools they need to be effective at work is really key to making that happen. We all have had that personal experience, and you can use AI tools in that learning and development space to do that effectively at a much lower cost.
Yeah. Anyone else?
So in pharmacy, I keep going back to our pilot, but so our pharmacists, we separate our pharmacists, dispensing pharmacists, which just make sure that the medications goes out the door, and they do all the reviews necessary for that part of the process. Then we have consulting pharmacists, which will do a more in-depth review of your medications and your profile to better understand the overall, image or profile of the person, right? And so what we found with our Falls program was we can flag residents and determine their fall risk pretty quickly, right? We can do this at scale by just reviewing their medication list incredibly quickly, right? Daily. And so it allows our consulting pharmacists to do more of the fun stuff, I guess, is the way I've heard it phrased. They kind of get to put on their investigator cap and see, what's going on, what is actually happening. So we see that someone fell, and this is their medication list, right? What is going on? Maybe there's not something directly in that medication list, but we understand that their weight has changed significantly. And so that dosage needs to be different. Or maybe we see that they are taking up an extra night of dancing, ballroom dancing or something like that, right? And maybe we say, let's do some training and tell them, how to properly stand up or something like that. So I think, as we were saying, AI really enables people to focus more a bit on the things they enjoy doing, and then kind of take away some of that grunt work of just the monotonous review stuff.
Okay, so follow-up question is what's the most overrated AI staffing claim that we see today? Something that's like not really working for us.
Well, I think the MIT study you referenced, where 95% of the companies that spent money on looking into AI solutions, but they hadn't really turned them on. So there's the idea that you're never going to talk to a person to get on the phone, that you're going to, Klarna, I think 2.5 years ago, so they had ghost jobs for a year. They'd hired no one in customer service. They had like 500 jobs posted and they got lots of press. But a year later, when they hired 350 people, they got no press because they really actually needed some of the people. So I think the overblown idea is that all this work goes away. I think the other overblown idea, and we have to be thoughtful about the language, the monotonous work we talk about is someone's job right now. There's someone who spent their life doing that work. And while we might not want to do it, they are doing it. And so when we talk about how it eliminates some of that day-to-day work, that day-to-day work actually is headcount places, big and small. And so we have to be thoughtful about how we present that information and what it means to those people who we engage right now.
So follow up to that is AI going to eliminate jobs?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Talk to me about that.
I'd say
What
it's
jobs?
Slightly differently.
Okay.
I'd say it slightly differently. Absolutely, it's going to transform jobs. It's going to change jobs. I think that's an absolute. But I don't think it's necessarily eliminating jobs. What it's doing is it's allowing us to focus less on the manual activities, as was mentioned, and really do more things, spend more time with patients, spend more time providing care or excellent services to our customers. There's a lot of studies out there and a lot of noise in the industry. So you see every day, Amazon let go 20,000 people because of AI. If you drill into that, 79% of that was just job restructuring. 14% of that was actually job transformation.
Yep.
Less than 1% was actually productivity due to AI and people losing their jobs. What's happening is they're moving away from that kind of boring manual labor into jobs that are interacting more with other people, with potential prospects, with customers, with patients. So I don't think it's taking jobs. But one thing that I think you do have to caution, and it's important on the education side, is that AI is not replacing humans. But humans using AI are replacing humans. So it's important to lean into the technology.
I would add one other point. I agree with you completely. And a lot of the layoffs you hear about are not AI driven at all. That's like a great tagline. That's not like the undercurrent for why that separation is happening. But there are, in fact, people who are not going to have jobs. And we should just simply say that. So if you have 10 paralegals, you might have 5. That means 5 people must do something different, right? And the 5 paralegals you keep will in fact be using AI as an enhancement for the work that they're doing. And so the question is, how are you able to help transition those people you're exiting, or whose work is exited, into other kinds of work they're able to do? And that's really the hurdle that a lot of us, I think, organizations struggle articulating clearly and thoughtfully, because the people who are training the AI systems to do their work and that AI agent that you put on the org chart that costs 1 to 3 cents per transaction instead of the $75,000 a year person you pay, they know that their work is going to go away. So you got to talk to them about what that work in the future looks like for them in order for their engagement and their empowerment, not just for them, but for the people who are observing you train these systems, who want to know what it means for their role next. Because the engagement issue is not often the people who are exiting, it's the people who are watching you exit others.
What about entry-level white-collar jobs? What about young people who are coming out of college right now? I think that this is a huge problem.
Yeah, let me chime in on this. I'm in that bracket, although this is my second company. I've never really worked for anyone, so different than most. I'm going to push back. I don't fully agree. I think at a microeconomics level, yes, you can do the work of 10 with 5. And what are those other 5 going to do? They're going to shift to something else. But when you look at the macroeconomics, you can't shift that many people. And if we're saying everything's going to get more efficient with AI, what are we shifting them to? In a lot of cases, AI can be a full replacement, but also in many other cases, it's not a full replacement, it's an extension. So I do think there's going to be a tremendous amount of job loss. I think if we look at Jensen Huang from NVIDIA, a year ago, he was saying the person who is safest, or he was saying that jobs aren't going to go away. The only jobs that could go away are the person who doesn't use AI. If you've watched him in the past few months, he's stopped saying that. He now says the people who are safe are going to be the plumbers, the electricians, etc. But what happens when you have robotics improve and it can do some of these cognitive and repetitive tasks? I think the entry-level positions are getting whacked right now. I think people need to be able to wear more hats rather than specialize in one area. But I think we need to look at this from the lens of, yes, there's going to be a big reduction in job opportunities, especially for people coming out of college.
Eric.
It needs to be said.
Yeah. So I think if you look, it's always about time horizon, right? So if we look, I think we were talking about next 3 years. I don't think we're doing that significant headcount reduction in the next 3 years. I think a lot of people are FOMOing into AI. I've talked to several vendors. They're all trying to pitch an end-to-end solution without understanding the industries, right? It's nearly impossible for you to create an end-to-end solution without understanding the industry. You have to understand the platforms that are involved. You have to understand the intricacies, the languages, right? Everything. And I find it very difficult for a consulting agency that has typically been software consulting to be able to just enter in the market and then suddenly revolutionize the market, right? And so I think we've talked about context earlier. Context is everything, right? So there was a big push maybe a couple of years ago for prompt engineers. That's already changed. That's already kind of come in and gone out. Everyone says now context or MCP, building agents, right? We keep changing the discussion, and it's because, yes, developers are really good at developing, but they're not necessarily good at understanding every single industry across the board. And so I think we've seen some platforms where it becomes expensive to interface with them, right? It becomes expensive to interact and exchange data. And to the point where they've created their lovely interfaces, they've created really great ways to interact with the system for a person. And maybe they haven't developed out some of the interactions just via like API or something like that.
Okay, guys, we're gonna wrap soon. I have one final question for you all.
Yep, sorry.
If tomorrow morning, if every senior care CEO was going to take one piece of advice from you in this new AI world, what would it be?
My advice would be to be thoughtful about how you turn on AI tools that relates to your workforce and ensuring that they actually support your core delivery and they support the development and retention of your people and their skill sets, which should equal outcomes and productivity.
I'm actually going to build on the previous point. If you look at AI and the adoption and the application of AI, you can chart it on two quadrants. You can chart it on the complexity of the task mapped against the experience of the user, and you can draw a straight line between those two vertices. What that means is AI can actually be anti-productive if you give a complex task to someone without experience. So what is our challenge right now? Our challenge is we need people coming out of college to get experience, but the AI is very good at that low level complexity work. So what we need to do as employers, what we need to do as managers and leaders is we need to find a way to upgrade their experience levels and do that in an efficient way. What we've done internally is we've launched apprenticeship programs where you can actually come into our organization, gain experience that from the types of jobs that AI actually are going to transform and take away, leap them up the experience curve, and then give them complex tasks, and they add more value to your bottom line.
Okay, 10 seconds each, go.
Enable better patient-facing solutions with the use of AI and tools, and I think that will foster growth for the company as people are more satisfied.
Don't go alone. I would say there are organizations that are looking to collaborate, work with them, understand what's actually happening.
And mine would be build AI literacy for your workforce. That is the number one thing you all should be doing. Okay.
Fantastic. Well, thank you. This was awesome.